Here you go. So I hope you all remember what we discussed in our last session. It was mainly introduction around these services on which we are going to do hands-on. Also, we studied about the difference between AWS Code Commit and other source code management tool which you are aware of, like GitHub, GitLab, Bitbucket, etc. And then we did talk about some of the errors which you might face while setting up those things. And we saw on AWS documentation page the solution to some of those problems. And then we discussed about code pipeline. Okay, so today we'll be doing a hands-on lab and we'll be leveraging the code commit for storing our code. In previous lab which we had done, there we were using S3 bucket, right? So we had built the code and we have stored our artifact on S3 and then we were deploying it. Okay, so today our source code repository or source code service which we are going to use would be code commit. Okay, so for creating that pipeline, there are certain prerequisites. Some of those I've already taken care of in interest of time. For example, especially creating those IAM role and policies. Okay, so as you know, in case of AWS, you need to have certain roles or policies to access another resource. Okay, so for example, if an EC2 instance wants to communicate with code commit, or code commit wants to communicate with a code pipeline, or code deploy, etc. For everything, there is a role or policy involved. Okay, so we have to create those policies and roles. Okay, so the first is, okay, what all IAM roles and policies you have to create. One IAM user which has full access for code commit and code pipeline. Okay, then you need to create a service role for code deploy. Okay, and then you need to have an IAM role for EC2 download the artifacts which are stored in S3. Okay, so in short, for accessing for one service to access another service, we need to set up some IAM role and policy. So that would be our first step. Okay. Second step would be, yes, since we are using code commit to store our code, so you need to, there are like multiple ways to set up your code commit. So one way is like how you usually do. You create a repo in the source code management tool, and then from your local, you sync your code, the local repository code to a remote repository. That's one way. Second, you can also manually create the folders in code commit and store the data, right? So in case you want to create a file, it's simply, I'll show you on the console, like how do you create a file and how do you create a folder structure. Again, this part also I've taken care of. I've already added the code in a code commit repository. Third is you have to launch EC2 instance, and there are two ports which you have to open. One is port 22 to SSH, and second is you have to open port 80, right? That's your default port for Tomcat server and all. And then you have to attach the IAM role. Okay, so the IAM role which we had created in step one. Okay, then again you'll go ahead and create a code deploy, create an application and code deploy. So there are two parts. You create an application and deployment group. In case of what do you say, the application, you just do a basic setting, and in deployment group you specify like how the deployment is going to be. Will it be in all at once or it batches? Since we are using only one EC2 instance, so we'll be going for code deploy default one at a time. Okay, and then finally we'll create a pipeline. So you can consider pipeline is kind of a service which helps you to what do you say, capture all these things. So from source code management to build to deploy. Okay, we don't have a build step. We're just using the code commit and the code pipeline step. Okay, and then again, ideally, what happens in real world, right? What do you want? The moment there is a change in the repo, a pipeline should get triggered. So if time permits, we'll see this as well. We'll go ahead, make some changes to the index.html file, and we'll see whether the pipeline was triggered or not. Okay, and then here are a few steps which will help you to figure out whether the setup which you have done is correct or not. Like the first, you have to ensure that your EC2 instance is set up correctly, and then the second would be to ensure that your pipeline is succeeding and you can see the steps. Okay. So let's get started. And finally, as I always tell you, make sure once you've done all of those things, you go ahead and clean up your resources. You don't get charged for storing your code, and you don't get charged for the roles and policies which you create. But for others like EC2 instance, the pipeline which you have created, etc., you might get charged. So it's always advisable that you go ahead and delete them. Okay. Let me quickly show you from where we've got all these, from where I got this assignment or this tutorial. So I used the tutorials which are present in AWS itself, right? And as we have discussed, we'll be doing all these hands-on lab. In the PPT, I've just simplified it for you. Like, okay, on at here, if you'll see, it would tell you like, okay, how do you set up the policies? How do you create a code commit repository? So detailed steps can be found here. Yeah. So let's get started. First step, okay, is creating a code commit repository. This I have already created, but again, here if you go, it would tell you like how what all you have to do, right? So if I go ahead and do code commit, so my repository is already there, but let me tell you what all you can do. Like, oh, you can go ahead, create repository. See, it's that simple. You name it, name, and then it's simple, similar to what you do it on GitHub, etc. Like, how do you create the repository, and then you clone this repository, and then what you do, you sync this local repository with your remote repository. So it's that simple. Like, okay, practice, practice code, okay, create. Yeah. Now what you'll do, simply you'll go ahead and you clone. Rest of the steps are like same. Yeah. Another one you can do it is, okay, you've created this, right? And you can manually add files. For example, if you can go here and then add files, create a file. Either you can create a file, okay? If you want to create a folder, like the way they have given. For file, you simply write text dot, okay, sample dot txt, okay? And author name, Jyoti, and then any random email, okay? First file. So this is how you create a file. Okay, and I'll show you how do you create a folder. And the sample code which I'm going to use, it's already present here in the documentation itself, right? Go to AWS documentation, AWS code pipeline. So here you'll find, this is the second tutorial, and here you'll find the sample code. So I took the sample code from here. Yeah. So this is the file which we've created. In case you want to add something, this is my first file. Okay. See, these are like your branch, main branch. This is directly going to the main branch. Again, it's not advisable that you commit everything to the main branch. The ideal, the real world scenario is you'll have a main branch. Remember, we talked about branching strategy. Then you'll have your feature branch, or you'll have a hot fix branch for production fixes, etc. This I'm just telling you, like in case you don't want to do the first step, right? Here they have mentioned the first step is, okay, what you have to do, create a repository, clone it. Once you clone it, then these are some of the commands. You download the source code from here. It's in the zip file, unzip it, place it at one location. Here the location name is temp, and then they have added the changes. This is one way. What I'm telling you, okay, for some reason, if you're not able to push your changes from your local git to the code commit repository manually, also you can create these files, right? Yeah. So specify the name of, okay, and then commit changes. Okay. Yeah. So similarly, what I have done is I've created these. Okay, here are my scripts. Okay. In the script, you'll see these are the files. Okay. Command to start the server. It's same. How do you start? Like a service HTTPD start, or then you can what do you say? You start the server, or you stop the server. Okay. Yeah. And see, this script checks, okay, if it's first it checks whether you can find any process with this name. If it exists, then good, else, sorry, if it doesn't exist, then there's nothing to stop, right? But if it exists, you have to stop it. Okay. So you can find all these scripts. There are some scripts for installation. Okay. Yeah, so you need to install HTTPD server. Yeah? So all the scripts are placed here. Then let's go back. Let's understand what is there in this app spec.yaml file, very important file. Here you call all those scripts one by one, right? Yeah. So see, you've got before install steps. So before you install, right? So for first you have to have the HTTPD server, then you start it, and afterwards, once the application run, you have to stop the server. Okay, and the file is placed here. Var, as you know, like in Tomcat, the index.html file can be in var www folder. Yeah, yeah, and this is our page, index.html. It's simple HTML page with this text written here. So, okay, yeah. And as I mentioned, I showed you how do you create a file. But for example, if you have to create folder manually, the way you see like under scripts, there are multiple files. So you go here, yeah, add files, create a file. Now, if you want to create a folder, then you will say script and then depend. Okay, again, JJ. So we will go ahead and commit the changes. Okay. Now, what do you say? If you go back, you see a folder, right? Yeah. So if I go here, yeah. So you see a folder, right? Under folder, there is a file known as dependencies. Now here you can go and add anything, right? Okay. So this is our first part, which we've already taken care of. Just having keeping your code in a code commit repository. Okay. Now let's move to the second step. Okay. So what is second step is create an Amazon EC2 Linux instance and install the code deploy agent. Okay. So for that, what we have to, and why do we need a code deploy agent? Because to deploy anything on EC2 instance using a code deploy, we need that agent. With the help of that agent, you are able to deploy. It's similar to say if you have let's say Dynatrace or Datadog or Chef, etc. For that, what do you do, right? For them to collect the matrices, etc. from your server, you need to have an agent. Similarly, here you are using a code deploy agent for deploying the changes on EC2 instance. Okay. So let's quickly, and then as I told you, for accessing for EC2 to access S3 or code commit or code deploy, anything you need certain permissions. So I've already created, what do you say, a role named as EC2 instance role, which has the required permission. Okay, so I'll go ahead and simply create my EC2 instance. Okay, let's go ahead. Probably I should have created this earlier only to save time, but that's okay. That's okay. We'll do it now. So you go ahead to launch instance. We'll name it similarly. Okay. What is the name of the instance? My code pipeline demo. Okay. Pipeline demo. Here we go. And then what does this says? Amazon Linux. Okay, I'll go and choose Amazon Linux, the free tier one. Okay, and then yeah, we'll go for free tier one. Then it says key pair name. So I've already created one, but let me recreate it. It says name and then same name as here. Okay, create a new key pair and the name is this. Create. Okay. I have downloaded the pen file, but I'm directly going to connect to the SSH instance. Yeah, security group, create a security group. So yeah, first is SSH, second is remember I told you that we have to enable port 80 as well. All these are fine, and then here in advanced detail I'll go ahead and select a role. So what is the role is EC2 instance role. Okay, that's done. Anything else I need to select? No. Okay, launch instance. Yeah, so let's quickly recap. This is what we had to do. Yeah, we had to go to EC2 instance, name this. T2 micro is what we have selected. You can also choose proceed without key pair because we are not going to SSH anyhow. Then in network setting, I have done these two. I have enabled SSH and then HTTP. The role which I have already created, EC2 instance role. The detail of this role you can find here in this step. Okay. Similarly, we've attached two policies to it. One is EC2 role for AWS code deploy, and another one is Amazon SSM management instance 4. Okay, you can open this policy and understand what is happening in these policies. Okay, and then we've launched, right? So once this is launched, see, this would take some time, or it's already up. Let me see. Yeah, okay. So still an initializing. So we'll go ahead and what we'll do is we'll start creating a pipeline. So first we'll create an application. As mentioned, an application is resource that contains the software application you want to deploy. Okay. So here in case in our case it's EC2 instance. Okay. Again for this you require a code deploy service. So this is also I've already created. Yeah. Now I'll simply go to code deploy. Yeah, so let me open code deploy. There we go. It should be up. Should also be up. Okay, so I'll go ahead and create one. Create application. Okay, let's name it same as what it's given. So it says my demo application. Okay, and where exactly you want to deploy on EC. See, there are three ways, right? One is EC2. Then if it's serverless, it's Lambda. And then if it's containers and all you're using, then ECS. Okay. Any tag it's asking me to add? No. Okay. So let me just create this. Simple. So application helps you to tell AWS where exactly you are deploying your code. So for us, it was EC2 instance. Now the second step is you're telling where you have to deploy. Now the details about the deployment is created in a deployment group. Okay, so I'll go ahead and create, but for that I have to ensure that this is up. It's still initializing. Okay, let's hold on. But let's see what you have to do. You'll go to create deployment group. Let's name this as a deployment. This is my name. Okay. The service role. Okay. I think it would be code deploy role, but let me check if that's the role. Yeah, code deploy role. Okay. I'll show you. I'll open these roles and show you. Meanwhile, these things are coming up. That what exactly I have attached, and all these details can be found at the top. Okay, they've mentioned what all you have to do. And before every step also they've mentioned, see, for code deploy service, these are the things you have to do. In service role, which shows, okay, what is my deployment type? This I've choose in place. Okay, we're not going for blue green deployment. In environment configuration, what it says, choose EC2 instance. Okay, and then name, and the value should be. Okay, so see, with the tag, you'll be able to specify. See, if you've got what do you say, multiple server, one for test, one for pre-prod and prod. So all those tagging, etc., can be done with the help of name key value, right? Now, what next? Under agent configuration with AWS, choose now and schedule updates. This install the agent on the instance. Remember what we were discussing on EC2 instance, we need to have a code deploy agent, right? So one way is like manually you can go connect to EC2 instance and then deploy that agent. Another way is through this, right? Where is it? Now and schedule. And then what deployment, see the type is all at once, one at a time, half at a time. So we've put just one server, so we are doing all at once. Okay. And what else? Or one at a time also we can do, because my bad, we've got just one server. And then under deployment configuration, this under load balancer, make sure enable load balancing is not selected. Yeah, we've put just one single server, right? Why do we need? So this I have to move. And what next? K deployment group. Okay. Yeah. So quickly revise what we did. For application, we created a deployment group, which is all about telling where you want to deploy and how you want to deploy, right? See, you'll do never in case you've manually deployed the code deploy agent on your EC2 instance. So I haven't done anything on EC2 instance, right? But I've remember for EC2 instance role, there were two policies which we had added. One was for SSM manager and another was for code deploy. Yeah. Now this is one by one. Okay, let's go ahead and create a deployment group. Roles are done. EC2 instance is done. Details related to code repository is done. And we've also created our code deploy details. Now, what is left is final step, which is we want to create a pipeline. Okay, so this is the final step which is left. Now, what we'll do, we'll go for code pipeline. From here also you can go get started. Create a pipeline. Yeah, let's name it same as what it's given. My first pipeline. Okay, let this be either you can create your role on your own or you can use the default one. Okay, then allow either to create services, so it can be, yeah, correct. Then what is the next step we have to take care of? Advanced setting. Leave the advanced setting, go to the next step. Okay, so next. Oh, the name already exists. Okay, next. What is my source provider? See, it could be code commit, which is AWS service itself, or you can use external services. So here we go. Last time when we had done lab, we had selected S3. Okay, what is the name of the repository? This has only there are two repository, but our code lies in my code. Which branch you want to build? Main. There's a single branch. Then detection option. Okay, so branch name this. After you select the repository, a message displays to be created. Under change detection option, leave the default. Okay. See, this is the step. So which helps you to which helps code deploy know when do you want to start the pipeline. Okay. So we are saying that choose a detection mode to automatically start your pipeline when a change occurs in the source. Okay. So use this will let it default. Next, we are not building anything, so we'll skip this step. Skip build stage. Yes, skip because we are not and then here what we need to select in the deploy provider, code deploy. Okay, so we'll go ahead and do code deploy, and here now same region. What is the name? My demo application. What is the group? Okay, next, and create pipeline. Let's see if everything would have been set up correctly, the pipeline would start, you'll and see a success message. Okay, so let's wait for some time. This is in progress. Okay. Now, meanwhile, this is getting started. Let me quickly tell you about all the rules which we have created. Yeah. Okay, the commit is successful. So what all would have happened? Remember, there was exec.yaml file, etc. present. Mhm. So I've created lots of rules, but yeah, would deploy. Okay, this is one of the rules which we had created. Let's see what all we've attached. See this as code deploy rule. Let's understand about this. Okay. Then you can select. Currently, let's see. Okay. Okay, let's come back here. So you can see our pipeline is successful. If pipeline was successful, then what would be able to see when we go and check EC2 instance, you'll be able to see the details of your index.html file. Okay, so yeah, let me quickly go back to our EC2 instance. It's running. Let's see here. Let's take copy address. See, you're able to see the changes. Now let's check if I make any change to the code commit repo in any of the files, especially here we have put just one file which is like index.html. Let's see if I make changes to it, will the pipeline starts or not. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll again go back to your code commit. Okay, so this is our source repositories. Okay, index.html file. We'll edit the file. Okay. And we'll just say congratulations, Talent500 users. Okay. Let's commit the changes. Or the name. Talent500 tt@k.m. For now, I'm just okay. This is to check if changes are detected and pipeline is initiated. Commit changes. Yeah, let's go to our pipelines. See, the moment we made the change, you see the pipeline has started. This is, I think, the pipeline which I had created previously, but see this one. Yeah. So don't get confused why you're getting two pipeline here. One I had created previously, and then this is the one which we created for this session. Okay. and you see the changes done. You see the commit ID, right? So let's see. Yeah, this is successful. Now, if I copy and check, no, still waiting. See, congratulations, Talent500 user, right? So you saw the moment we made the change, pipeline got triggered. So let me quickly recap what all we did today. And again, the details of this particular exercise can be found in AWS documentation itself. Okay, the second under tutorial, go to AWS documentation, AWS code pipeline, and refer to the second tutorial. Yeah, and then I was telling you all the roles which I have created. So let me. This is little slow, man. Okay. So all the rules which I had created for this particular exercise, the name, I kept the same name, what they have provided here. So let me pick one. For example, let me pick this one. Yeah. So if you go, and these are the two policies names which we had created, and this is what it is doing. Okay, so provide EC2 access to S3 bucket to download revisions, and then you have these, what all it's doing, right? So using this particular policy, we were able to deploy our code deploy agent, right? So one way is you SSH and then you manually deploy the code deploy agent, or in when you create the deployment group itself, you get a step wherein it asks you to do you want to deploy the agent, right? So let me quickly recap. First thing, what we have to do again, since we are going to, we are practicing pipeline with respect to a source code management. So first thing is you need to have a code commit repository, right? So we went ahead and created a repository named as my demo repo. And then I told you there are like two ways to add code, and the default code can be found here. So you download this and manually you create these folder structure and file structure. Or second, simply how do you do, right? You clone your remote repository and then add changes, and then you push changes from local to your remote repository. Yeah, after that we had to create a EC2 instance. What is important was to enable port 80, and then we had to attach these two policies, right? After we created a EC2 instance, what was the next? We had to create a application and deployment group. Application tells you about where exactly you want to deploy, and then deployment group tells you about how you're going to deploy, configuration related to the deployment all at once, or half, and then you can select is it in place or it's a blue green deployment, etc., right? And then there were certain steps about, okay, and what should be our detection rule. So we let it default, but you can configure it as per your requirement. Finally, we went ahead and created a pipeline. So we selected in the pipeline consists of your source, build, and deploy step. We didn't had any build step. So it was simply we gave the location of our source code, which is code commit, and then we skipped the build part. And in deploy portion, we went ahead and selected the application and deployment group, which we had created. So that was done. And how did we check that ASR pipeline is successful? We took the public IP address of your EC2 instance, and or the default port is 80. So you don't have to write port 80 there. So we saw the changes. Another thing which we did was we modified the code commit, and then we checked, okay, did it trigger the pipeline or not? Remember, in this case, we were deploying for the main branch, that you can change, right? And you can also specify where exactly, like we've created just one EC2 instance, but you have EC2 instance for each region for like test prod. So all those configuration can also be done. The final step would be to clean up. And this is the step, like you first delete the pipeline. Okay, then you delete the things related to the deployment, and then finally you delete the code commit repository. So I'm not going to delete the code commit repository. Maybe in future exercises, it might come handy to us. Again, you don't have to delete the rules which you have created, because you're not being charged for those things, right? So let me quickly, if you want, I can show you for deleting. See, this failed. Let's see why the previous one which I had created failed, right? Again, this is like I had created it for practice. Moment I made change to the code commit because I was using same code commit repository. So let's quickly see what is the error, right? Yeah, so error could be this is success. Oh, hold on. To go to pipeline. Yeah. So it would have failed, which I can guess is the EC2 instance. For this particular pipeline, we had a different EC2 instance, right? With like when we logged in, I showed you we created a new EC2 instance, right? So the EC2 instance which were associated with this pipeline doesn't exist, and hence this have failed, right? So today all our exercise was on this. So let me delete. First, let me just delete the older one to tell you how do you delete. Okay, then go ahead and delete it. Yeah. Similarly, let's go ahead and delete. Yeah. So first you'll delete the pipeline. Then you'll go ahead and delete the applications you had created. Application and deployment group, etc. Okay. I think first you have to deployment group. Yeah. Delete application. This is deleted. That step was not necessary. I was not able to see the delete application button. So you just have to go to the application, and moment you delete the application, the group also gets deleted. And then the final step would be you have to delete the code commit. But as I told you, I am keeping it for now. Maybe it would be helpful to us in our next session. Okay. So this is what we had to practice today. Let me quickly, before we end, quickly revise again. Okay. The purpose of revising is not to uh, ask you guys to cram these steps. Everything would depend upon what is your requirement, right? So this is just to tell you what are some of the basic steps. Yeah. So first step was all about the users which you had to create. Yeah. Uh, then the sample code EC2 instance, remember to open port 80 and attach the roles which you had created in step one. That role had two policies. One for your what do you say code deploy, and another for SSM manager, which helps you to deploy the code deploy agent, right? And then then you created application, attached a deployment group to it. You created a pipeline, you modified the changes, and you saw that the pipeline was triggered. Okay, this has the steps to check. And finally, you cleaned up resource, which is like you clean the pipeline, you deploy, code deploy, and EC2 instance. That I have not deleted, so I'll go ahead and delete it just after this session. Okay, guys. So see you in next session. I'll come up with another hands-on session in the next video. Thank you.